a good difference between the two words, so I'm just going to say they're interchangeable. Urination or micturition. So now we know how to get that urine produced by the nephrons, how to pass it into the bladder, and then how we control when we're going to release from the bladder. So that pretty well hits most of the chapter there. What if your kidneys don't work? Well, if your kidneys don't work, you're in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. Remember, glomeruli filter 180 liters a day. So kidney problems can show up really quick. So you can start having major imbalances very, very quickly. So a lot of people die from kidney problems, no doubt. We have all probably heard of dialysis or hemodialysis. Dialysis is a wonderful, amazing, incredible tool, but it was never designed to replace a kidney. It was always designed as something that would be a bridge to transplant. The idea was somebody's kidneys are failing, let's use this machine. We're going to actually take some blood out of their system, pass it through this machine, and then put it back in their system. We're going to use this machine, this dialysis machine, as a kidney, an artificial kidney. So it's a wonderful, fantastic tool that works pretty well in the short term. But it was never meant to be a long-term replacement for kidneys. So if you see if you go to a dialysis center, you will see patients, and if they've been on dialysis for a while, they don't look very good. It is rough on you. Okay? It's not perfect. It's not as good as a real kidney. So over time, toxins are still going to develop in people's systems. So it's a great tool, but we need to have more donated kidneys. That's the real fix. Dialysis, some people just have this idea, oh, your kidney's bad, so what? Go to dialysis. You'll be fine. Dialysis is rough. Real rough. So just keep that in mind. I would like for you to kind of look over that page 925, a little description on the hemodialysis. And I can't remember, I actually haven't looked at that page in a while, but there are now other forms of dialysis too. You can do what's called peritoneal dialysis, where they push fluid through the intestinal cavity and back out. And the epithelium in there is able to do some cleaning. And that's kind of a rising sort of issue right now that people are trying to see if that's going to be as good as hemodialysis or not. Some people are doing it in combination. It's kind of crazy. I have a really good friend. She's way overweight, very obese, and she's getting into her upper 60s now, but her kidneys are wearing out. So she's trying to make the decision between peritoneal dialysis or hemodialysis. She's already got the shunt put in. They already put that in a year ago because they knew she was going downhill. So it's interesting stuff. But the best thing in the world would be to get a new kidney, if at all possible. Okay? So that's it for that chapter. Any questions on the urinary system? How we clean our blood. Major, major important system. All right. Oh, I don't know. How many of you are from out of town? Oh, great. Okay. I put some pictures in here a couple years ago. That was my old house. This is my current house. We moved to a place on a hill in southern part of the county, and I could look out and see downtown. It's really cool looking over Airport Park and see downtown. See some pretty sights there. Every once in a while I get to see the fog rolling in. But the fireworks this Saturday. If you guys are from out of town and you don't know what Thunder over Louisville is, it's a good time. Good time. So it's the kickoff for the Derby, and they have one of the largest fireworks displays in the world. It's a really, really cool time. So it's just a lot of people, tons of people there, but I watch it from my house. That's not the view. That's like with binoculars there. But anyway, it's really cool event. So I encourage you to go see it. I can see lots of cool storms up there too. Okay. Oh, lightning too. That's what I'm showing there. Get some lightning shots from here. This is from my bedroom, actually. It's lightning scattered around. Little funny, look like a horse. Okay, that was it. That's my fun time. So, we're going to move on today. I'm going to leave this section and go to my last PowerPoint for the semester, for the year. So let's take stock of where we are for a second. All right? We've just finished the urinary system. So when we start looking at the final exam, the new material is going to be respiratory and urinary. We did them both in lecture, but we did them both in lab as well. Okay, so everything should be reinforcing itself going into the final exam. We've also got that reproductive video, the NOVA video, where you filled out the answers to the questions. You know I'm going to pull 6 or 8 or maybe 10 of those off of that sheet and put it as the fill in the blanks on the test. So make sure you study that NOVA video. And then we'll have old questions from the final last semester and test 1, 2, 3 this semester. Okay? So there's still a fair amount on there. I think it's worthwhile to make that final exam 20% of your grade. Okay? So just make sure, start preparing for it. You know it's going to be in 2 Tuesdays. Okay? It is coming up. The next couple of chapters, after 22 and 23, 24, 25, 26, I don't bother covering those. Okay? I really don't. If you need to have a lot of information on electrolytes and digestion and nutrition, you'll have that in your nutrition course. If you don't need that, then they must not have told you to take a nutrition course. So I don't worry about those chapters at all in this class. Okay? It's not because I'm in a rush. Actually, I'm way ahead. All right, so it's not that I don't want to cover that stuff. It's just I don't think I need to cover it. We're going to jump right up to reproduction. That's how we're going to finish the semester out. After today, we have 4 lectures left. So we've got plenty of time to cover these. It looks like a lot, 3 chapters there. But the development one, I point to like 2 pictures. That's it. I spend most of the time on male and female reproduction. And you'll see they're very, very similar. So it goes pretty quickly here. It's usually pretty interesting. So that's where we'll start in just a second. I also want to remind you our 3rd practical is this Monday. It's our last Monday. We don't have another Monday lab period because of the Easter break. So this is the end of the semester all of a sudden. And remember, it will cover the digestion lab, the urogenital lab, and the frog lab. Okay? Hey, what did you think of the frog lab? Was it the coolest lab you've ever had?
Yeah.
It's the coolest lab I've ever had. I had some cool. Even though I love dissecting bodies in gross anatomy class, I think this is cooler because it's live for a little bit. So does anybody have any questions on that lab? I've already heard some people were telling others, and they sat down with them and told them everything about it. And so that was good. I got a little report back from a former student. But any questions at all? Does everybody feel like they understood what they saw? Because hopefully it'll give you a little more understanding when you deal with those patients who are brain dead. You've got some idea. Of course, you have to be sure they're brain dead. I was sure, right? Because we cut that head completely off. You're not going to see too many like that, where their head's completely cut off. You're going to see people with mashed skulls. And then you have to wonder how much of their brain is still working. So you still have to rely on that neurologist at some point to look at those EEGs, those electroencephalograms, and tell us, is there any brain activity left in there? Okay, it's not quite as easy as my frog lab, but it's a starting point. And it's certainly a starting point most people don't have. Really, most people don't. So if you have any questions about it, please ask. I do want you to understand it and not misrepresent it to anybody. All right, great. Our practicals will be, as usual, 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Monday. I wanted to put a little word in here about evaluations. Because we're doing the online evaluation things now, have you all gotten emails about it? Because they don't send anything to me, which is kind of screwy. If it was up to me, I would not let you do evaluations yet. I think they opened April 3rd or something. And you hadn't even had the frog lab, the most important lab we have the whole semester. So if it was up to me, I would say do evaluations during the very last week of school. So I'm just asking you, judge the whole course. Okay? Judge the whole course as usual. So I'd wait a little bit. You don't have to be in a hurry to do those. I don't know if people have started doing them or not, but that's it. Judge the whole course. Our final exam is scheduled for Wednesday, and we already decided last week that we would move it from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Okay? It's not going to be that much longer than a regular test, so you have plenty of time. If anybody's worried about it and they need to stay longer, it's no problem. You can stay into the lunch break. I'll be here all day. It's no problem at all. So if anybody's uncomfortable with it, just talk with me. But otherwise, we'll sleep in another hour. You can study another hour. We'll start at 9. So any questions about where we're going the rest of the semester? Because I just want to spend the last 4 lecture days just lecturing. Not worrying about anything. Just go through the reproductive system. Everybody good? Questions, comments, suggestions, complaints? None of that. All right. Wonderful. Then let's jump way up to chapter 27. The authors of this textbook decided to start with the male. I don't know if they're sexist or anything like that. I think I would probably start with the male too because it's an easier system. So it's a nice way to ease into reproduction. The female reproductive system's a little more complex. Okay? We're going to start with a general overview of development in the initial pages of this chapter. Other textbooks will have a regular development chapter and then do male versus female. They just combined it into the male here, so we're definitely going to start with this one. So we're going to go backwards a bit. This was mentioned briefly in the video that you watched, the NOVA video, but I want to go back a little bit and just hit some highlights here. So asexual versus sexual reproduction. Going way back. When we think of reproductive system in humans, we think sex. But we got to get down to that cellular level to see what's happening. And we still use that term sex. So we need to understand that. So asexual is without sex. Sexual is with sex. But at the cellular level, they really don't mean that. We don't start thinking of copulation here. We start thinking of how these cells divide. So for asexual reproduction, it's mitosis. It's regular old mitosis. What were the 4 phases of mitosis? What were the letters for them? P-mat, remember? Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Just simple PMAT. So we went through that in pretty good detail last semester. Just want to kind of bring that back to the top of your brain for a couple of minutes here. So we talked about things that were happening in the cell. We saw how the nuclear membrane dissolved. We saw how the chromosomes condensed. They formed into those little X's for us. So that was happening during prophase. At metaphase, those little chromosomes climbed onto the spindle in the center of the cell. So at metaphase, you had those chromosomes lined up at midline. At anaphase, those chromosomes, which were actually duplicated chromosomes, split. So we had 2 sets of chromosomes going to 2 different ends of the cell. They went all the way to the ends, and then at telophase, we just said, okay, now those chromosomes will decondense, and the nuclear membranes will reform twice. And then the cell membrane will pinch off. We included all of that in telophase, just to make it easy. So the idea there was we should start with 1 cell that had how many chromosomes in a human being? 46. And we should end with 2 cells that have how many chromosomes? 46. And they should be copies. They should be clones, okay, if everything worked right. So you see some other terms I put up here. Fission and cloning. Those are really kind of alternate terms for mitosis. Because you really are cloning. You want 1 skin cell to turn into 2 skin cells. You don't want it to differ. We don't want to all of a sudden grow a liver cell on our skin. That's not going to help us. So we want cloning. Cloning is a wonderful, great thing. You're doing it right now. We're doing it for our entire lives with most of our cells. 1 set of cells that does not continue to clone, it stops around age 6, 7, or 8, would be what type of tissue?
Nerve.
Nerve tissue. Nerve tissue seems to stop when we're fairly young. So we said, well, okay, that helps us explain why the spinal cord doesn't go all the way down our back. The spinal cord stops around that L1 region because it stopped growing then. The rest of the vertebral column, the bones kept on growing. Okay? So just reviewing everything today, going way back. So asexual reproduction simply means there's no differentiation. We're not trying to make different cells. We do not want variety. We want cloning. So no variation, and all the cells are diploid. They are the full complement. This happens in other animals and plants as well. Everybody's doing mitosis, lots and lots of cloning of cells. Alright? So, sexual reproduction. This is where it gets complicated again. When you look at it grossly versus cellularly, things get a little bit confusing. But in the end, what we want is variety and haploid cells. That's the biggest take-home message for sexual reproduction of cells. For sexual reproduction of cells, we want variety and we want haploid cells. So if the 2 sexes, the 2 different genders, produce haploid cells, well, when they get together and have sex, not sexual reproduction, but when they have sex, the way we mean it colloquially, well, then the 2 haploid cells can join and form a single diploid. So then you're done. There's no more sexual reproduction for a while because that diploid cell now undergoes mitosis like crazy. And it will have some variety. For that, you've got to take an embryology class to get into that. But we start with 1 fertilized egg that becomes 2 4, 8, and so forth. Okay? So try not to confuse the act of sex that we think of